The Sweet Ghoul. Timothy Menston Parrott was a well-mannered, well-natured young man. He was incredibly mature for his age, just 10 years old. He was slightly plump and had mousy hair that was flushed with a slight ginger tinge, arranged to messily frame his rosy, round face. It was a Thursday afternoon at 4 p.m. Timmy was walking home with a few of his school pals, conversing about whatever boys of their age typically do. Halfway home, they passed Montgomery's Marvels, a new candy store which had very recently opened. All of the boys stopped and peered in through the windows, ogling at the wonders separated from them by only the thin panes of glass through which they looked, as well as their empty pockets. Timothy, having lightened his mother's purse by a few coins that morning, was desperate to go in and liquidate the evidence of his quick fingers. Eager to join in the fun, Timmy's friends decided they would run home as fast as they can, beg their parents for a few coins of spare change, then hurry back to the sweet shop to trade their shiny coins for more vibrant and tasty treasures. As his mates sped off, down the sidewalk, Timmy pushes the door, which is framed in lacquered mahogany wood, open and enters the shop. A small bell rings overhead as Timothy shuffles in. The shop looks to have been plucked out of the 1950s and is unlike anything young Timmy has ever seen before. The shop floor is moderately sized and adorned with great mahogany shelves and cabinets, which flow all around, snaking off in every direction. Set against the backdrop of the glowing mahogany furniture are hundreds of jars, crammed with all kinds of different sweets: gobstoppers, mints, licorice, fudge, chewy sweets, and boiled sweets amongst many hundred others, the vibrant colors of which glisten and glint like schools of flamboyant fish buzzing around the oceanic reddish-brown coral reef of the shiny mahogany wood. It was heaven on earth for the 10-year-old, and enough to excite even the most earnest of adults. Timothy is soon pulled from his wide-eyed appreciation of the setting by a strangely familiar voice. "Timothy, my boy, welcome." A slimy voice croaks from behind a counter the young boy hadn't noticed yet. Timothy swivels to face the figure whom the voice came from. He is met with a slender, tall man dressed in a pinstripe suit, who had dark circles around his striking hazel eyes. It looked as though he had not slept in months. He has a long, wispy beard that forms a point just above his chest, and his hair is jet black and messy, with a blonde streak that shoots through it like a bolt of lightning. "Do I know you? How do you know my name?" questions a slightly awkward Timothy. "We've met before," responds the man, the silky splendor of his warm voice doing just enough to calm the boy's frayed nerves. "You were young, very young, even before this body, if I recall correctly." He speaks while gesturing at Timothy, who seems not to understand what the man is saying. He must be foreign, Timothy thinks to himself as he looks around, once more at his grand surroundings. "Quite the marvel, isn't it?" coaxes the strange man. Timothy nods in sure agreeance. "We make all our produce ourselves." The man gloats as he shuffles out from behind the counter. "Would you like to see how?" Timothy ponders for a moment, knowing he shouldn't. Yet still, he mulls it over for a while before turning to the unfamiliarly familiar shopkeeper and nodding excitedly. A large grin cracks across the man's face as he leads Timothy behind the counter. As they exit the shop floor and step down into the lower regions of the building, Timmy is astonished at what he sees. He now stands in a great laboratory, lit entirely by wax candles. All around are strangely shaped vials, flasks, and forms of apparatus in which drip and flow strange-looking liquids and steams, which Timothy discerns are certainly not for sweet-making, as they glow in the harsh orange light of the candles. He begins to panic and turns to run and is grabbed by the now menacing shop owner. The man closes the door behind them and proceeds, with his free hand, to peel away at the skin on his face, which stretches and sags as he does so. Like a cheap latex mask, the man pulls the skin of his face right off, revealing that he is no man at all. Underneath his mask brandishes a shockingly wide mouth, the thin, cracked lips of which stretch literally ear to ear, and is crammed full of jagged and barbarous teeth. Timothy watches in utter terror as more of the ghoul's face is revealed. He has no eyes, only dark sockets which are covered over by pallid, veiny skin. Timothy tries to scream, but can only muster a faint wheeze as he is gripped by the fiend, which begins to carry him across the room. Looking down, Timothy begins to sob as he notices that he is gripped not by a human hand, but by a claw of some kind, with 3 long and horribly bony fingers, tipped with hideously long fingernails, which glint in the passing light as they move. Carrying the young boy who kicks and wriggles, the fiend lumbers slowly to the back of the workshop where there is a black stone altar. Panicking, Timothy reaches out for something to fight back with as he is whisked along. His hand meets with the cool glass of a flask, filled with an iridescent green liquid, which looks almost to be radioactive. He grabs the flask, and without hesitation, he smashes it over the creature's head with great effect. As the flask shatters, the faint screams of agonized children escape from the flask and ring out, rising heavenward as the liquid inside sprays everywhere. The contents of the flask fly everywhere and burn like acid the skin of both Timothy's hands and the head of the creature which carries him. Writhing in agony, the creature drops Timothy to clutch its singeing head. Shaking his hands off, Timothy bolts heading straight for the door, leaving the creature in his tracks. He smashes through the front door of the shop, the bell above ringing almost like an alarm with the force. He continues still at breakneck speed down the sidewalk, muttering to himself as he sobs, scared. He meets his friends who come skipping back toward him, brandishing coins they intend to spend in the shop. Nevertheless, seeing the speed with which Timothy runs, and the look of angst on his face as they quickly double back on themselves and run home in fright, though unsure as to what they're running from. After arriving home, Timothy told his parents what had happened, and they called the police. However, when the police went to search the building, they found no man, no ghoul, no alchemist workshop, nor for that matter, a candy shop. They were instead met with a run-down and unused vacuous room, with no evidence that a shop had ever existed there. No evidence except a tiny gobstopper, placed carefully on the floor just outside the doorway.